burst moding photos. Not moving that fast, are we?
Hi, we've got tables and chairs just on the front here.
It's a scary spot.
Best spot.
Yeah, we can spit on you in May.
Hi everyone, there's a few chairs down the front.
That's all right, keep it off. Probably is the Wi-Fi. Just turn it off.
Do you need another Wi-Fi
No, that's
connection?
fine.
I have another one.
Not gonna hold it.
But I have another Wi-Fi in my pocket. Wi-Fi.
She needs to set it up.
Much work. Fair enough. Say I've got so much.
There's one chair here. If anyone's got a space next to them, that's great. There's some more spaces down here, and we're going to get underway in about 30 seconds. Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for coming along to this panel today. We're really pleased that you could join us. I'm Becki, I'm from Event Manager blog, and obviously as you all know, today we've launched this report. So we've brought this panel together to discuss some of the key themes from the report. So we're really glad that you could join us. The report was first started to be published in 2010 by Julius, Solaris, who's the editor of Event Manager blog. And obviously it's grown from strength to strength. I know a lot of you refer to it as your Bible every year, and we've got lots of exciting things that we're going to share with you here. So I'm going to introduce you to the panel in just a moment, but I've just got a few housekeeping things to share with you. I've been told that if you want to submit questions to ask the panel, please do it via the IBTM app, via Slido, and we will be able to see the questions at the end and obviously pick out some questions that we can ask to the panel. So don't forget to do that. And obviously please do tweet along and, and tell us your thoughts. So, most importantly, I will introduce the panel who is here. We'll start with Julius. So Julius is the editor of EventMB, which obviously I hope many of you read on a daily basis. It's the #1 blog for event professionals, and obviously numerous polls have voted Julius as the most influential person in the event industry. So I'm sure, yeah, a lot of you obviously know Julius very well. Next to Julius, we have Nick Borelli, who has flown in from the United States. He is the president of Borelli Strategies, and he is very passionate about all things marketing and social media, particularly Snapchat and Pokemon Go as well. And here, to my left, we have Padraic Gilligan, who I've probably pronounced that really badly, sorry, excuse my non-Irish accent, who is from an agency called SoolNua, do you pronounce it? And he specialises in venues and destinations, and he's our guru on these areas. So there's also another contributor to the report who unfortunately couldn't join us today, which is Ruud Jansen, and he has written the event design section of the report. So without further ado, obviously it's these guys that you want to hear from. So I'm going to go straight into the first question, which is from each of the sections that you've contributed to. So for Padraic, it's destinations and venues. For Nick, it's marketing and social media. And for Julius, it's event tech. What is the top trend that you have identified in each of your sections? And if we can start with Julius.
Yeah. So thanks very much for the intro. The objective of the report in general, it's been a report about event technology for 5 years. This is the first year we actually introduced new sections with social media, venues, and meeting design, which is obviously one of the most important bits that we're looking at these days. So how do we scope that? The outlook is for 2017, so we're not looking at 50 years from now. We're not doing predictions because I think it's a waste of time for every one of us looking in 20 years, because I'm concerned about what I'm going to do next year, to be honest. So if you want predictions, probably there's going to be another section about it. I can give you data and research that we've done over the past 5 years looking at startups that submit to the blog. And for me, the top trend this year, it's actually driven from the outside, so from outside of the event industry. For the first time in 6 years, we don't see a lot of startups specifically in the event industry doing products for the event industry, but we see a more bigger technology company looking at events. Finally, people like Facebook launching very specific event-related tools. So what is the number one, to go to back to your question, I would say is artificial intelligence in the sense of concierge for events. That's one I'm particularly fond of, because I think mobile apps for events, you see a lot of those here, they're evolving. And we need to kind of see of what's next, because we've seen the programs, we've seen the networking, but really I want to be able to say, tell me where the next session is going to be and get a response for that. Because I don't want to go through hundreds of tabs to find that specific piece of information. That's potentially disruptive for the next year. So if you're looking for technology here on the show floor, prioritize that, because it's something that could be actually valuable to attendees.
Brilliant. Over to Nick, please.
Sure. My number one is fear of missing out. It's events don't need to happen unless it's never happened before. And people, when it comes to marketing specifically, they need to be able to have something to hold on to that makes it a must. And the only way that you can do that and weaponize that is through social media, because social media exists primarily as a way to shout into the void to say, am I here? It's that, and it's the ability to say, I'm here and I'm great. And you curate your life with it. Having the content to curate your life in an increased experience-based economy means that you have to be able to have events that are geared towards showing off, geared towards having some element of it that they don't expect, beyond their expectations, and that is more impactful than simply an event to have an event. And fear of missing out is, it's bad and it's good. It's good for us if you're doing it right. It's bad if people don't have an outlet for that. I know it's kind of a negative trait. It's using fear, but fear has been used to sell always and always will be. And in an experience economy specifically, it comes down to why your experience warrants existence. And I think that if it has happened before, it doesn't need to exist.
Thank you. And over to you, Padraic.
Great, thank you. I've just learned a new word, actually, weaponize. I've never heard that one before. That's
In America, that's how we do things.
It's a really good word. So thank you for that. I'm going to call out two. I'm going to call out safety, and I'm going to call out intellectual capitals, knowledge hubs, as kind of almost neck and neck at the top of my list. I'm writing about two things, about venues. So they're the kind of the buildings or the locations where events are taking place. But I'm also writing about destinations, so cities and countries where programs are actually selecting those destinations and countries and then running the events in them. So it's kind of two things that I'm trying to cover in what I'm saying. In relation to safety, I think it's really the obvious one. We've had situations over the last number of months which have really been game-changing in a very fundamental way, because for the first time, some of the major destinations in the world, in Europe, have been targeted by terrorist activities. And that has been hugely game-changing in two ways. It's been hugely game-changing in terms of what we expect. In other words, people pull their events immediately from those locations and book other locations. And that is happening. And in a way, those of us who are working in destinations kind of have learned already to look out for those opportunities even. So if something happens in somebody else's country, it can be an opportunity for us. It's not a great thing to be actually highlighting, but it is a reality. The other side I think that we're seeing as well is we're seeing a determination coming out in the events world as well in situations where in the past an automatic kind of change of destination would have taken place. Now we're seeing some companies, and I've given some examples in the report of companies from the United States that made a determined decision to continue with a program in Paris, for example, when under normal circumstances they would have pulled that straight away. And I think that's a really, really interesting kind of new trend that's emerging as well. The other thing then, just to mention briefly, is that increasingly destinations are not projecting themselves into the marketplace as locations that have great infrastructure, that have great buildings and hotels and convention centres. In a way, if you don't have them, you shouldn't be trying to actually create a marketplace for yourself anyway. So now it's about something beyond just the infrastructure. And increasingly destinations are finding that it's about the intellectual capital in the destination that can be the defining characteristic for choosing that destination over another. So the destination then as a knowledge hub, as opposed to as a place that has nice hotels and a convention centre.
Great. Okay, so did you find there were common themes across each of these areas that came out in the report?
Yeah, I'll take that. So, yeah, we did. Surprisingly enough, actually, there were multiple connections and clashes between different sections. So, meeting design, venue selection, digital marketing, and social media. We found that all these 4 areas had common themes, at least 2 or 3 of them, I would say, if not more. My one specifically in technology was virtual reality. Obviously, we're talking about it. We've been talking about it for over a couple of years now on the blog. And specifically, with venues, that's very interesting, and how, I don't know if you've experienced some of that here, how you can do venue inspections through virtual reality. But that's interesting. I mean, it's nice, it's a gimmick, whatever. What I'm interested in is what we call in the report mixed reality. So the interaction between virtual reality and what is happening right now, right here. And the fact that Facebook launched a very specific product to involve remote audiences in the actual conversation happening at events with a specific camera, 360-degree camera, open source, that can be used to get everyone to attend. It's changing things, because if we've been in the event industry for a while and you attend this type of events, you've heard about hybrid meetings, this scary word that everybody's tried to do and everybody honestly failed to do, because they've come and gone as a buzzword most of the times, unless few examples of good ones. But what is happening right now is actually hybrid meetings are happening now. Now we have the chance to have the biggest giant in technology to invest in that. What does it mean for you is to actually have a virtual reality camera right here. And sporting events have been the first adopters of that. So you can live the experience of being there courtside and watch whatever is happening in front of you with a virtual reality set. And actually, in some cases, interact with other attendees in a virtual room. So it's the combination between what is happening offline and online, and the interaction for that. How is it going to change your event? You're going to be able to sell tickets, finally, for people online, which has been one of the problems with hybrid events. How do I justify $200 for a crappy Wi-Fi connection, right? So now it's finally happening with proper tools, consumer tools that we can use. So exciting.
Great. Any other crossovers?
Even add to that point, where Facebook Live is going in the next year, anyone who has a Facebook Live broadcast will be able to interject their own ads within it. So you won't have to, this won't be just for the big players. You'll be able to have a slide in there, and you could just think of the possibilities there, right? And you don't even have to necessarily, as you said, charge the $200 there, because you have the sponsor dollars in a product that you can just pop up and run with anywhere. So that's super exciting. And again, I see this stuff and I don't really know where one ends and one begins where it comes to design and marketing. Like, they're so hand in hand. The fear of missing out element, for instance, I could debate this all day. If it starts with event design or if it starts with marketing, where do you, I think as a marketer, oddly enough, I don't think it starts with marketing. You give me something and I can market it. That's kind of usually where I come from, right? There has to be some element in the event that I can really touch that I haven't seen before, or something that I can manipulate in the design, and that comes from watching people, it comes from understanding people, and it comes from a design eye, because one of my, if not my number one cardinal rule of event design is, if you have to tell somebody to do it, it's not design. Design is something that you put there and people react to it the way you hope they react to it without asking them to. And that's where you also get to see these moments where people take pictures. A good example is, let me think of one. Cosmopolitan Hotel in Las Vegas. There are these giant high-heeled shoes. They're just giant shoes. It's a shoe. It's fake, but it's looks like no other shoe, and it's just huge. And lean up against a wall. You will see people taking photo after photo after photo of it. What does that tell you? People like familiar things, and they like it big, because it's something that it's a little bit different, but not scary different. And that is an understanding of design. And then when you see that happen, you know that people take pictures of it. And people take pictures of it, they probably could be pushed to use a hashtag on it. If they use a hashtag on it, you can assign dollars to it, because you can have messaging around it. And all of a sudden, design is marketing and marketing is design. So the lines are very blurred.
Great. And did you identify some themes?
There's one of the strong points that Rude makes in his section on meeting design is, these are the words he used. He says, participants are demanding from their event experience the same comforts they find in their homes, not just in seating and linens, but more so in connectivity, food choices, and networking options. And certainly in relation to venues, there's a very, very strong trend away from the kind of the formality of hotel venues, or venues that are specifically designed to be venues, and a move into very quirky, unusual, edgy kind of spaces that are totally different, and are obviously kind of turning the whole idea of a meeting and what it means on its head. So you get this immediate, unexpected kind of surprise when you go into somebody's loft that's been chosen as your meeting location, and that's a really, really strong trend. There are a whole bunch of different web platforms now that are actually finding these spaces in cities and making them available to you. So it's a very exciting trend.
That did come up a number of times across all the sections as well, the effect of the sharing economy, like you've touched on there, and you know the effect that is having across everything, across event design, across event tech, across everything.
This is like a second wave of sharing economy, because, I mean, we like to talk about it, but it's been around for a while now, right? So what is happening right now is that when the first services from the sharing economy were created, like Uber and Airbnb, just to make an example that everyone can relate to, a lot of startups started creating services for the event industry, marketplaces, one-to-one interaction, but most of them failed miserably. Like, really, I've seen a lot of companies that went bust, I mean, in a few years, because I don't think we were ready 2 or 3 years ago for that. Now that Airbnb is offering meeting services, all of a sudden we're ready. So it's happening now. I mean, that impact, we see that. And obviously, we see all of a wave of technology supporting that, from choosing the meeting venue to choosing speakers and all of that.
The other thing actually is where things that maybe have happened in, let's say, the event or production industry on a kind of a random basis, technology now allows them to happen in a more formal basis. So I'm thinking of, I don't know if you've heard of ShowSlice, which is a really, really interesting platform that allows me to put in my production installation today, and then you to move in there tomorrow and use the same one. So we actually share the whole cost of the production. And there's a platform then that makes that possible, that links us up as two event professionals using a venue and then sharing the costs of the installation. I think that's genius.
It's one of the companies that we for each trend, you will find 3 examples and 3 companies that offer that in terms of event technology, and ShowSlice is one of those. So, yeah, great idea.
There are lots of great examples throughout the report, so it's really inspiring as you read through it. You know, there's just fantastic events that are listed in the events design section, and yeah, lots of things to take away from it. So next question to all of you is, did you have any items that nearly made your top 10 but missed out? And if so, what were they?
Right, my one was specifically another big comeback, like an oldie but goodie type of thing. It was the project management, which is not really sexy, right? But it's what we do for a lot of months before the event. I mean, it's not one of the most exciting type of event technology, but the fact, I mean, we're down there as EventMB in the Innovation Zone, by the way, come and see us. We have a few of the finalists of the Tech Watch competition for IBTM. And 2 of those are project management tools that were designed specifically for the event industry, because we have this obsession with Excel, right? You know, we use Excel spreadsheets all the time. We live off of that. And, you know, all these tech companies have been coming for years saying, drop your Excel spreadsheets, right? They always say that. But there's a reason why we don't drop them, because your product is not good enough. It's not simple enough. So I will stick to Excel. That is changing now. So these people are coming up with more usable, easy tools that are made for events. And we kind of need that, because we need that interaction. We need also the integration with other tools that we use. And that's a big problem for event planners. So they didn't make it eventually for sexiness reasons, I guess, but they're still there. So go and check them out in the Innovation Zone.
So for a content type for marketing and social media, what would have made the list if I had 11, 10's just a round number, I guess, would have been more content about how the sausage is made. I think, especially when it comes to event sales and marketing, you have oftentimes 1 event a year, 2 events per year, and there's a drought of content in between, and it's a struggle. And I think what we don't realize is that the majority of the work we do, the majority of the energy put into the event actually, if you spread it on a calendar, is interesting enough to sustain people's interest. And I think that when you bring in other people, when you bring in stakeholders and you make it collaborative, there's just a lot of untapped energy for content that is not shown. And I think that and the fact that we don't treat our content as disposable enough, that's the wave of the future as far as this content. It's not precious anymore. If you can see Snapchat or Instagram going to stories, it's less about the specifics and going back to it. You can swear a little bit. You can be a little bit off the cuff. You can be a little bit more real, because they won't hold it against you. It won't be there tomorrow. And I think that showing how the process is made and not being too scared of getting it perfect, but having the heart of it show, is where content is going.
Do you think that's a hard thing for event planners, though, being less polished?
Absolutely. It's why the ones that are really successful end up ingratiating themselves a little bit more, because they're willing to let their guard down, and they have more content. They have a more variety of content, and it is more impactful because it ends up being a little bit more true, because the guard isn't up. And it's less boring. I mean, the polish goes, a lot of things go away when you polish it. A lot of the character goes away. And when you just do something in the moment, and you don't have to worry about it coming back to haunt you 6 months later, you realize that you can be a little bit more, you can speak to your audience directly.
Great. So what missed out for you?
So every time I hear of the number 11, I can't help but think of Spinal Tap. The people still know about Spinal Tap. Yes. Yeah, I'm kind of looking around and sort of not seeing too many grey hairs like me. But anyway, my latest thing about 11 is, if you haven't seen the 2 Scottish guys in the elevator trying to get the voice-activated elevator to go up to the 11th floor, make sure you look at that. 2 guys saying 11 into a voice-activated with a Scottish accent. Very funny. Anyway, my 11th point that didn't make the cut is a kind of a roundabout one, but destinations depend on access. So how do you get to them? And in the past, within the meetings industry at large, there was kind of an unwritten rule that you could only really get to a destination on a full-service airline. In other words, low-cost airlines weren't kind of factored in to any kind of corporate travel to a destination, and that's obviously changing very, very significantly, not just in Europe with Ryanair, but on every single continent. And I think it's there's lots of reasons for it. I think if I think of my own kids, from an early age, they've been getting on Ryanair and EasyJet and Vueling and going for weekends to places that, you know, when I was their age would have cost me a king's ransom to get to. So they're used to getting on those planes, and they're used to the benefit of actually being in the place rather than actually imagining, as I would have as an 18-year-old or a 22-year-old, that it was a comfortable, luxurious experience and part of the glamour of travel to be on a full-service airline, right? They don't care about that anymore, and I think increasingly it's not about how you get there, it's about being there, and I think low-cost airlines are just going to come more and more into the meetings industry because of that.
Okay, next question. What are the biggest surprises in your list that people wouldn't expect to see to each of you?
I wish we could do a little bit of a hey as well. That's fun, right? Ah, they're having so much fun. What's wrong with
They're
us?
all having a better time than we
Right,
are.
okay. No, I mean, the number one trend for me, hey! Sorry, I had to do it. So the number one trend for me that I put there, it's diversity. So technology is actually helping events to be more diverse. And I put it there as a provocative trend because it's not a trend. It's something that I'm saying we should care about. And we don't care about that enough, I feel. Because, you know, it's always the same thing. I mean, thank God we got you here, Becki, because otherwise it would have been the same three white males talking. And it's a bit, I think we're beyond that. So there's a lot of technology that actually, calculators that depending on your audience can tell you what's the right mix of people to have on stage, because you have to represent all the different aspects of the audience. And especially in this industry, I don't understand what three males are doing here talking to a women-powered industry. So I'm very,
Especially
very
when two of them are
upset
Italian,
about it.
Julius.
Yeah, and so I said, what's trend number one? Yeah, that's going to be trend number one, and probably the most surprising one you will find in there because it's not technology driven. It's more, let's advance the industry driven.
I'm just absolutely excited as someone who has been in the events industry since he was 14 years old that the biggest industry right now that people are talking about the most cares more about the live events than anything else. Social media has shifted completely to live events. And I'll give you an example. Every social media wants to be Snapchat right now. Whether Snapchat's the biggest thing, whether it's the right thing for everybody, it isn't. But I'll tell you, you don't care about Snapchat, but Facebook only cares about Snapchat. They're the only enemy, and they know that the reason is live events fuel them. Their income generation comes from live events. The on-demand geotags that are available only for a specific time and place augment contextual events. Just like us. That's exactly what we do. We're here for 1 minute and we're gone the next, and we're only in a specific place. That's where they put their money. That's where they planted their flag. And Facebook is followed by trying to take every single thing that they're doing, but also they're expanding on it, and they're creating video drones that are available for sporting events. They're worrying about chatbots that specifically will be able to answer questions for not only sales, but for live event questions. And their Facebook events, I mean, they split it out into another app. Because they want to be able to have that much more engagement for events. So I'm more excited about that than anything else, because anyone who's been in the industry for a long enough period of time knows that we need validation every once in a while. We haven't always had it. And there's the transition of the party planner days are way over, and now it's everyone, it wants a little bit of piece of us, and it's exciting to be right in the middle of it.
So do you think the surprise is that more that it's focusing on the live element, and so we're event planners, but a lot of it, you know, the live streaming side, and so
I guess the surprise comes from that the people on the very top are looking at us, and they are setting the trends, and they're going and they're investing in this sphere.
Yeah.
And before it was like an add-on. It was like, we do all these things, and yeah, we could do this for live events too, I guess, but this is where they want to be.
Cool.
That's exciting.
Right about time.
I know, right. Eventually.
So biggest surprise for you?
Yeah, like it is a surprise, and at the same time, when I think about it, it's not a surprise at all. But one of the things that you'll find throughout the report is just the pervasiveness of food at the center of event design and at the center of event experiences. And it's linked, I think, across many different platforms and in many different ways, but probably has a lot to do with that other, I don't think we mentioned it as a trend, but authenticity, I think, is obviously something, again, you'll see it everywhere, that we're all looking for now increasingly in our travel experiences and then in our event experiences as well. And there's probably nothing more authentic than a local food experience. It's just what brings you into a destination, into a venue in a way that, like nothing else in many respects. And that's increasingly front and center. I was really very delighted to find the food offerings even here, you know, on the show floor are healthy, they're nutritious, they're not outrageously expensive, there's lots of variety. And I think that is the way we're going with events as well. We're going for that authenticity thing, but we're also going for choice, for making lots of different food offerings and presentations available to people.
Great. So, what do you think the outlook is for the event industry? Is it looking good?
Right.
Or not?
I don't comment on the industry as a whole, but I can tell you for event technology, we're in the worst year for event technology. You can record that and put it live that I said that. It's the worst year for event technology I've seen in the past 7 years. Usually the way we come up with the trends is we look at how many startups have been created in a specific area of event planning. The number of startups for this year went down probably by 70%. So that's a very alarming thing that is happening, because if I look back at the past 7 years, most of the innovation that happened in events has been tech driven. I mean, I haven't seen anything done in meeting design. I mean, we're still doing conferences and panels here, so I mean, what's new with that? So tech has been pushing a lot of that change. So if tech goes away, I get scared. We kind of need that bit of innovation. That's a problem with startups not recognizing the dynamics of the event industry. They don't know the event industry sometimes, and they kind of lag behind, and they need to be more, they need to attend more of these events rather than the South by Southwest, whatever, because they completely ignore that. But also part of the problem, unfortunately, it's us. We've been a bit too resistant to technology, and we need to really open the doors to it, because, I mean, there's no more time to decide whether technology is like, you know, it's the same talk that we had in 2007 where brands were thinking about social media. Say, oh no, it's going to go away in a couple of years. I mean, you see the guys here, they got 1/4 of the show floor is technology, right? I mean, 5 years ago it was 0. So you see it's happening, right? We need to embrace it, which doesn't mean spending money. It means understanding what they do and how it's changing the event industry. So it doesn't look good on the event tech side, but obviously we'll push for that.
I mean, on the marketing side, piggybacking off what I just said, that everyone who has all the money and all the strings is looking at us for the first time, that's exciting. But the fact that contextualizing experiences and adding to it is something that people are doing naturally, and adding these things to their photos specifically or videos, and are not scared of a sponsor message here and there to be able to get content, is great, because then we can pay for things, right? We can make sure our stakeholders get what they deserve, and it can happen in a way that they'll actually do. Which the scary part is that generally speaking, on any kind of platform that comes out, people are really excited to it until marketers come on and ruin it. That's what we do. You know, we exploit and we make things spam, and every medium we come in and just blow it up, and that's why some of the newer social media markets, like they know that, and they're making it so. For instance, I could not, like, if you're following me on Twitter, I've scheduled my tweets 2 weeks ago. I didn't do them here. I made it seem like I did, but I can't do that on, say, Snapchat, for instance. And because of that, it has to be live, and it has to be real, and it has to have happened in real time. So there's an effect of that, and that's exciting that they're realizing that that's what people want. They want people to share their experiences as they happen and make them more experience-based, as opposed to how I use Twitter, which I wrote weeks ago, and I fake authenticity and I fake being in the moment. things are going that way, and things are going towards live, which is good. So I'll be the sunny side to your dark clouds.
No, absolutely.
I agree, though. I had a lot of meetings in the last year with event tech companies, and I saw very little difference.
Just to go on that, Padraic, you were on the call for TechWatch. You know, we were judges on the technology award that IBTM does, and we were, struggling to find new good things. So yeah, you can share that. But
Yeah, there were entrants, there were people who are doing like new tech. It's just not innovative.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So your outlook for the industry?
So my outlook. So I'm going to give you a new term. So we had weaponize earlier on. I'm going to give you a term, VUCA, V-U-C-A. Have you heard that term before? Okay, few people. Apparently, it was coined by the U.S. military when they were going into difficult, uncertain kind of locations. So VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I think it kind of pretty much sums up where we are at the moment in relation to destinations and venues, people coming to our destinations and coming to our venues, because it's very uncertain, it's very complex, it's definitely ambiguous, and it's volatile. Sometimes we will do extremely well, sometimes we will be down in the doldrums again. There are things happening in the world that we never would have imagined. We could all have been very wealthy people here if we put money on the Brexit outcome in the UK and the presidential election outcome in the US. We could have made fortunes, but those things have happened, and they just add to that volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity, and the ambiguity of where we live. And in a way, in many respects, we've been living in that kind of cloud for a while, and we've got a little bit used to it, a little bit like the new normal, particularly during the recession years. But I think it wasn't so much a false dawn, but we did have a new kind of start a number of years ago when I think year on year there were more events taking place, there were bigger events taking place. It seemed to be coming back. And certainly kind of the safety issue is going to impact, there's no doubt about that. So I do think we're in for a year of VUCA.
Great, thank you. And before we have got a question which we will finish on, but in the meantime I can see some questions are coming in from the audience as well. So the top voted 2 questions, we'll start from the top. What would you identify as fake trends? Things that seem to be trendy because people talk about them but really don't matter that much.
I love that. That's the best question ever. So I can rant
Ask that question
and
yourself.
go on and on.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
more
put that
than
question
one
yourself.
trend that really it's fake. It's the way you get exposed to trends. So I briefly introduced our talk as not predictions. I mean, whenever I hear prediction, I start to sweat and feel like dizzy because, I've seen so many predictions through the years. I mean, by what they said 5 years ago, this should be holograms. We shouldn't be here, right? So, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I don't believe in anything that it's too far away. So whenever you hear the future is going to be self-driving cars, but I mean, it's not happening.
I was in an event presentation 2 years ago, and they said the future would be catering would be replaced by Soylent in tubes, and that the tenting industry was going to go away because of global warming. And I'm like, I think people want to know the Pantone colors of this year, not like 2045. Like, who cares?
And what scares me sometimes is that, like, I see everybody goes like, "Woo, exciting, yay!" I mean, it's fun. If it's fun, and we all agree it's fun, let's have fun. Let's clap. Amazing. But let's not like start going back home and plan our events based on self-driving cars, because honestly, I mean, I have to see proof that it's real, is going to happen anywhere soon. And the other trend I see a lot at these shows from some of the beautiful exhibitors here that I love a lot, in selling something that it's sold for probably 3 years old as a trend. Like, I mean, tell me you do a mobile app, but don't tell me this is the cool thing to have, because, we kind of been there, done that. Let's move on. So it's not as new as. So yeah, that's my take.
You got to battle test it a little bit too. Like I'm often asked, what's the new social media, and I'm like, who cares? Like, do you guys want to market somewhere where there's nobody at yet? Like, For me, as a pundit, potentially, I mean, I play with apps and social media that will come today and be gone tomorrow, and you'll never even see them. But don't worry about that. You're not doing well enough on the ones that are there. Like, focus on getting better at the things that you're doing, and don't worry about splitting your interests where you don't have the ability to actually tackle it. So it's not necessarily about chasing trends. It's about just make sure you're the master of something before you try to be, watered down.
The thing that I wonder about all the time, sometimes I kind of believe it fully and sometimes I disbelieve it intensely, is the whole kind of demography or the demographic workplace made up of millennials and baby boomers and Generation X and Generation Y. And I wonder, are they really all as different as we like to make them out to be?
Pet hate.
And so we certainly got a lot of mileage out of, I think I've written a couple of blog posts myself about millennials, so it's been good for me in that I got content out of it, but I'm not sure I actually believe it, that you can actually categorize people into those sort of limited behavior patterns that
we're laughing because we have some story. These two people write for Event Manager blog, right? And Becki is our deputy editor, and we've banned the word millennials on the blog.
You
can't use it in an article.
Switch it.
Like if you want to use the word millennial, Becki's going to nicely say to you, sorry, but we don't approve that. So it's the only editorial entry. And the reason why we do that is because I just did a presentation where I had millennials with a picture of The Visitors, the sitcom from the 80s, where we're waiting for these 20-something-year-olds to come and replace us, take over our event, and we're going to be desperate and lost because you know what? They want engagement, they want technology, they want nice food, they want nice events they feel related to. But who doesn't want that? Can you tell me? Because probably you're more tolerant to that because you've been exposed to so much that you actually, you live with that. But, millennials surely have the access to more technology to tell it to your face. But we all have grown up. We all have used technology at events. We've all have experienced those nice events. And you know what? I'm looking at Twitter and I see all these pictures coming from these events. And I'm like, oh, this is a cool event. So the next event I'm going to go to, I'm going to say, this is not a cool event. I want to go to that event there. So is it just millennials? I mean, yeah, good one, Paul. I love that.
Okay, next question. Is there any trend emerging in terms of places and ways people prefer to meet? In other words, will traditional venues such as hotels continue to dominate? That's a good one for you.
Well, because of millennials in the marketplace, we're going to... I'll start again. Point I made earlier on, there's definitely a change. And, certainly traditional venues and hotels should be worried. And they are worried because they're changing. And they're already bringing in psychologists and interior designers and architects to reimagine what a meeting space should look like. And what they reimagine it to look like is kind of the loft that you can actually hire if you go onto one of these many platforms that allow you to do that. So in a way, that's a definite, it's a definite trend. The setup for how we are seated here today would never have been the case a number of years ago. We're already kind of, even in a major mainstream trade show environment like this, we're already disrupting and changing and I suppose copying what's been happening at places like the Web Summit and South by Southwest for quite some time. But certainly in relation to venues, we'll always have a need for the traditional venue because there will always be traditional style meetings. It's just that more meetings will be experimental. More meetings will actually look to event design and meeting design to actually figure out how you can actually achieve the objectives that you have in a very almost scientific way by virtue of how you arrange the room.
To add to that, I guess it's what is changing, or what I see changing a lot, is the approach that event planners have with venues as a result of our experience. Because, as Padraic says, your children have traveled with Ryanair and EasyJet. They're used to that. Now we're getting used to Airbnb, and I'm going to Airbnb, and I have 2-bedroom with perfectly fine Wi-Fi and a kitchen for half the price of a hotel, right? So you've got that experience, you've seen that, and then you go to a hotel and you started to get charged for water. So I'm like, what's happening here? So this passive role that event planners have had to a certain extent, I mean, especially I come from Vegas, as you can see from my accent, but I live in Vegas right now, and the absurd cockiness of these venues that have to impose the fact that they're overbooked and they have the best year. I'll see you in a couple of years when the economy is going to go down. Like, how are you going to make it up to all the event planners you abused with your rates, charging thousands of dollars for a crappy Wi-Fi? That has to change. The approach of event planners, it's changing towards venues. They're finally telling them how it is. And if you're not offering that to me, I'll go somewhere else, because I don't care anymore about your brand. I care about the experience and what we create for the event. Thank you.
Okay, next question for Julius. This one. You think many people will use VR, virtual reality, at their events in 2017, or does it make the list? So, do you think many people will use virtual reality at their events in 2017?
No, I don't think they will use it, especially in the first probably 2 or 3 quarters, probably later on. But the push consumer-wise that it's getting, the investment that it's getting, it's remarkable. So we're in the same situation of where a few years ago 3D was going to be the next thing for the movie industry, and all of a sudden, like, you have the same question that producers and production houses in Hollywood had. Do we need to produce in 3D? Is the same kind of type of question. Probably not yet, but the fact that it's such a big consumer push, it's similar to the smartphones push that we've seen quite a while ago. So is it something that you need to be doing right now? No, it's something that you need to know. You need to know what's happening right now. You need to explore all the different aspects of it, because it's not about putting some nice but weird looking glasses on. It's about how can I exploit that if it becomes mainstream. You have to be ready for that.
There's a book called Every Time You Use a QR Code, a Kitten is Killed. And the basis of it is...
Book?
Yeah, well, it's a small book.
Right.
But the basis of it is around the idea that just because the technology exists doesn't mean you have to use it. Awareness is something, but you don't have to use it just because it exists. And so there's that. And I also... I'm really getting on my soapbox and talking about how the live events industry really needs to focus on how we can do whatever we can to champion augmented reality. Because augmented reality cares about the event industry. Virtual reality does not care about the event industry. Virtual reality, potentially, if you look at it, derivative of is false experience. Where augmented reality is experience plus. And if we're in the live events industry, you've got a decision to make. Which horse do you want to back? So every time I see VR and how VR is going to impact the events, I just imagine the worst case scenario. You ever been to those silent discos? Now imagine taking their eyes away too, just bumping into each other. You know, and that's not necessarily what it's going to be, but augmented reality takes the best of live, and you know, like we talked about the hybrid, it takes the best of live and it takes the best of, you know, digital, and it finds a happy medium and it makes it, you know, plus. So I
don't agree with that.
I know.
I don't agree. Yeah, we
we
fight about it all the time. I mean, it's
it's all the promise of something.
I feel the opportunity there through virtual reality is one common reason that we're all in denial of. Some people can't make it. Some people want to be at IBTM, but they can't make it. What are you going to do about it? You want to involve them somehow. So we had the exact same conversation about hybrid meetings. People were so aggressive. Oh, they're going to kill us. There's not going to be events anymore. No, there's going to be more events. Because same thing for social media. Oh, we're going to be doing everything on Twitter back in the days. We're going to be doing more of that because people meet online. They experience online, and then they want that live interaction. The frustration is so much.
I think virtual reality and goggles with 360-degree vision are two different things, though. Like, I think that's maybe the difference. Like, I think that streaming we should embrace. It's not a factor. Do you know who streaming hurts? Bad event producers. I want them gone anyway. They're in my way. So fine, let's eliminate those people from the beginning. But I think that if you look at goggles on your eyes that let you see 360 degree of an event, that's not virtual reality. Virtual reality is the entire experience crafted by a content creator, which I've been to a virtual reality conference just a couple months ago in Toronto, and they're movie makers that make that. They don't need us. They're creating a film, and it is so that's different. The live event never even happened for the virtual reality creator, and that's why I see them as a threat.
I think the interesting application really is in terms of, say, destination marketing, where a destination wants to actually give some kind of experience at a trade show of what it would be like to surf on the west coast of Ireland or to visit Destination BC, for example, which are two of the examples of really good virtual reality that I've seen myself. The practical issue around it is I actually want to throw up when I put those things on. Do you know? So, like, how many people does it actually impact in that way? For some people, it's an amazing experience. For me, we really want it to be an amazing experience, but I don't feel good after it. So is that going to also sour me to the experience that I was actually looking at?
That's actually, as someone who just put on somewhere between 15 and 20 different brands of goggles at this conference, I can tell you that, like, the really expensive ones, you don't feel like that anymore. There's actually just a dollar amount once you hit over it that it's not a problem. And it's also contextual. They found that human beings without context of their body where it should be feel sick. So what they do is they provide you either put you in a cart or a car or something that gives you a false torso, and that makes it too. So they both crafted the content and the technology, so that the higher end versions of it, that's actually, they're like black and white. That's eliminated. That never happens again once you can afford it.
Okay. Final question, which is quite a good one. It's talking about trendy event destinations, and obviously somewhere might be cool to go, but maybe it doesn't understand the requirements of the event industry. So should we be worried about those new trendy emerging destinations? Can they cope with the requirements of the MICE industry or not?
Yeah, I think it applies both in terms of, you know, venues as buildings and destinations, you know, where that you might actually go to. I think it's true to say that there is such a thing as a kind of a requirement, a minimum requirement. It uses the term MICE there, meetings, incentives, conferences and events. Even within the acronym, there are already huge differences in terms of the expectations. So an association meeting participant will have radically different expectations or requirements to an incentive travel qualifier who will have very, very high expectations. But I think one underlying trend, to use that word again, is we're looking now increasingly for real, authentic locations to go to. And within that, there might be already a little kind of permission or a little sort of forgiveness if the destination hasn't quite sort of reached that very polished level. In fact, we might even like that. We like kind of edgy now. We like sort of things that are not completely smooth, because that means it's real. And real now is becoming a stronger priority for us than that kind of absolute polished experience. So I think there's going to be a happy medium. It doesn't mean that if we're a destination or a venue that we can pull back on the training that we should be delivering to our staff in order to make sure that they're able to deliver a quality experience to us. But I think we need to kind of to look at it cognizant of the fact that we also don't want to ruin the very reason why a second tier or a third tier destination or an informal venue might be the right one for the event that we're bringing there.
And there's some great examples actually in the report where you can hire a whole village. So everything in the village is yours, at your disposal. There's staff provided. You know, there's lots of great examples within the report. So you really should hopefully download it. It's all free of charge. Please download it and have a read. So I'll leave Julius to sum up. If you could just give us a summary of why people should download.
I mean,
before
it's
Julius.
there. I mean, without promoting anything in any capacity, you can go and grab it. It's free. We launched 6 hours ago, actually, and 1,000 people downloaded it already. So it's probably something in demand that people want, and we're happy that more and more event planners ask for trends in other than technology. And so I'm happy that Padraic, Nick, and Ruud Janssen also participated in that. I hope my Dutch R is getting better, right?
Better than mine.
So meeting design, venue, technology, free, you can enjoy it. And that's it, really. Thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. We really appreciate it.
Well done. Great job.